Welcome back, everyone. This is P.E.Eyes Uncovered. My name is Jim Shepard. I'm the author of the P.E.Eyes Ben and Fern Detective Novel Series. Today, I want to discuss a little bit about writers' groups. What is a writers' group and how do they function? Well, the best way to describe a writers' group is, okay, consider this. I'm walking into a group of friends and I've got a meeting to follow. So I say to this group of friends, look, guys, I've got a new shirt on today. I'm not sure that I'm happy with this shirt. I'm not unhappy with it, but what do you guys think? I got to present myself to the group next door when this meeting's over, and I want to put my best foot forward. So tell me what you think of it. So the friends would look around and they'd study the shirt, and they'd study me, and one by one they would offer their opinions. The first person might say, "Well, Jim, I love the color. It's orange, and not everybody can wear orange, but it suits you well. It goes with your complexion and your hair, or what's left of it. But I'll tell you one thing. If I was going to a meeting, the first thing I would do was make sure that my buttons were lined up. I noticed that halfway down there, you've got a button that's out of alignment. Wonderful. That's exactly what I was looking for." And the next person might say to me, "Yes, I love that too. And but if I was going to that meeting, I think I'd want to button up the top collar like that. I think that's more formal looking, and I think you'll present better with the top button done up." Another person might say to me, "Ooh, I'm not. If I was wearing a shirt like that, I don't really like the button down collars myself. I would rather go with a starched collar." And the third one, the next person might say to me, "What if you considered a pocket protector?" So all of these things we're giving as advice to make me look and feel better about how I am going to present myself. So I'll sit around that table and I'll think, well, thank goodness I came into this group because first of all, yes, I can't go in there with a shirt that's not lined up properly. I've got to fix that button right off the bat. Then I'll think, well, what about that neck button? Do I want that done up? I'll have to give that some serious thought. Yeah, I do like the color, and I do think it suits me, so that's good. As far as the starched collar goes, well, I'm not so sure that I like the starched collar. They're uncomfortable. And the pocket protector, well, that's not me. That's old school college days pocket protector. I wasn't a dork, but yeah, I think it would make me look like one. So I'm not gonna bother with that. There's other ways I can look like a dork without putting in a pocket protector. So there you have it. I've got all of this helpful information, and I can do with that what I choose. Okay? I am the ultimate decider on what I'm going to do. Am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? Am I going to do this? That's my decision. Okay? My decision only. And that is very much like what a writer's group is. It's the same thing. A writer's going to bring in his or her work, pass it around to the members of the group, and the group is going to look at it and they're going to read it over, and then they're going to offer their suggestions. You may have a manuscript that you want looked at, or parts of. You may have an essay. You may have a sermon. You may have poetry. It doesn't matter what it is. It's the written word, and you want people to critique it, but do you really? Okay. So you bring the work in and you pass it around. And writers are traditionally thin-skinned. We don't take insults and rejections very kindly. So it's important that when you're critiquing somebody's work, you do it with that in mind. You don't say to somebody, "This is terrible work. I wouldn't read this. I started to read this and I found it was garbage." And, there are people out there that will say and do those things. And not only are they hurtful, but they could be very damaging to somebody's potential career. So how do you do that? Well, you say to somebody, "I really like what you've written here, but I'm looking at this paragraph and I think it rambles on just a little bit too long. If it were me, I would break it down into three sentences, and each one of those sentences would have more impact that way." Okay, that's good advice. Another one might say, "Jim, I think you're using far too many commas in there. Maybe you could get rid of some of those commas and put in a semicolon or two." Well, we have courses that deal with grammar. might want to set that straight right off the bat. And once you get into that, you'll see what I mean about the usage of punctuation and that sort of thing. And another critiquer might say, would your character really say something like that? I see your character being more of this or more of that. Well, these things they can be startling at times, but they can be very helpful at times as well. So as the author, you have to listen to what's being told to you, and ultimately you have the right to decide whether you're going to use that information or discard it. It's your work, and ultimately you are the one that's going to be responsible for what gets out there. Now, years ago, my wife and I started a writers group called the North Shore Wordsmiths. Tripping over the words, and here I am a wordsmith. North Shore Wordsmiths. And we started that group because prior to that, my wife belonged to 3 writers groups, and I belonged to 2 writers groups. And we learned an awful lot from those groups. We brought the information together. We decided, it's time maybe to start our own group. So we did. We started a group with, I believe there were 6 members, and it grew quickly up to 10 or 12 members years ago. And I found that the most effective writers group has anywhere from 6 to 8. Anything over that, it's just too much, and it's very difficult to get around to everybody. And I like the intimacy of a smaller group myself. In a writers group, there are a whole list of rules and guidelines that you absolutely have to follow. And we'll get into that in another session, but it's very important that you follow these rules. And the reason for that is chaos will ensue if you don't. You've got 6 or 8 people sitting around the table. Everybody's got a different opinion, and the approach that you use has to be helpful to the writer and helpful to the readers too. And consider this: if you're bringing in a piece of work and you want to sit down and read it to the group, that's not a good idea, because as you're reading through your own voice, and you're hearing what you want and expect the other people to hear. And oftentimes that's just not the case at all. Get somebody else to read your work, and you can hear from the way they read it how it sounds to them. And that may not be the way that you wanted it to be. The inflections, the pauses, the this and that. It's very important that you keep the readers entertained. You keep them informed. If it's a humorous story you're telling, you want them to feel the humor. If it's a serious one, you want them to feel how serious that really is. If it's a horror movie, you want them to be shaking in their boots. And the way to do that is to have other people read the work, and you can get the feedback by listening to them. There's so many different things to do in a writer's group to improve your work. Years ago, this is an interesting story. Years ago, during one of our groups, we had a new member join the group. This woman walked in and sat down, and when I took a look at her, I almost fell off my seat. When I was in high school, grade 10 to 12, I think it was, I had an English teacher, and we'll call her Elsie because that's her name, but we won't give her last name. Elsie was an English teacher. Elsie was now my student. Talk about irony. First thing that crossed my mind was, of all the hard times that I gave Elsie in school, she's come back to pay it forward. It's revenge. She's gonna blast me out of the seat. But it didn't work out that way. As it turns out, Elsie was an old school type of teacher, very knowledgeable in English, but she brought to her table the English, the grammar, the everything that she learned back in the day, and things have progressed. The English language itself has changed over the last 30, 40 years. Elsie had some trouble with that. When she was doing the critiquing, she would critique it as it pertained to her teachings back in the 60s and 70s, and we had a hard time convincing her that things had changed, but she eventually came around. And she was a great spirit. She added so much, her knowledge of grammar and syntax and so much just added to the group. And her sense of humor was also there. So join a writers group. Join 2 or 3 writers groups if you can, but pick a writers group that's going to suit you. They're not all the same. I like a writers group that has a mixture of talent involved. Like our group, we have someone who um, struggles with English, not as the language, but as the written word. And we have scholars in there who love to throw around 3, 4, and 5 syllable words. They work together and they help each other, and that's what you really want. So the idea of a writers group is to help you improve your product so that others will be interested in it. And if they're interested in it, they will read it. And if they read it, they'll buy it. Hopefully. And I mean hopefully. But it has to be something that grabs their attention. And a writers group will definitely help you with that. So on that note, I will leave you. And until next time, have a great day. Thank you.